Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. First of all, realize that as humans, we are biologically programmed to seek approval from the outside. This is not a fault in our upbringing. It's not a fault in our wiring. Babies, if you take a mother and the child, and the mother is engaging with the child, making eye contact, they're, having a mother-child thing. And then suddenly the mother stops paying attention. And they've done these studies. They do them very, very briefly so as not to harm the child emotionally. But they'll have the mother just stop paying attention for a moment. She's still physically there, but just she stops making eye contact. She stops smiling at the child. She kind of looks away. You watch that baby do everything it can do to get the mother's attention again. First it'll do it gaga, goo goo, and it'll kind of make noises. Within 30 seconds, the child is fussy, on the verge of tears. In less than a minute, the kid is screaming and crying. And of course, the researchers then immediately have the mother make eye contact again and make the kid happy and whatnot. But the point is that in order for us as babies to survive, we need for that mother, that father, those caregivers to be directly responsive to us in a way that is positive and safe. Because if they stop paying attention to us, quite literally we will die. Human babies cannot survive on their own. They need an adult for at least the first few years. So we literally are biologically programmed to do whatever we can do. First, in a loving, healthy way, like I'm going to goo goo, gaga, kind of giggle and hope that you pay attention to me. And then in more of what you would consider the negative attention-seeking ways, the kids who act out in order to get attention. Because ultimately what matters is simply the attention. So the fact that we grow up continuing to need external approval validation, it's not something you should feel badly about. You should realize this is how we are all wired as social beings. The dilemma comes that ultimately, once we are no longer dependent physically for survival on other human beings, we need to develop a core sense of self. That's what you would consider a strong ego, a healthy ego. As we are growing up is a sense of, I know, for example, I know that my mother, father, brother, sister, teacher is abusing me. But that doesn't mean I am a bad person. It doesn't mean I deserve it. That would be an extraordinarily healthy ego for a child to have. The ability to understand, even though other people are treating me in a certain way, doesn't mean that they are right. Usually it goes the other way. Usually we assume that we must deserve the abuse. We internalize it and assume that there is something wrong with us. But a very, very, very healthy psychology would be for that person, as they grow, as we become adults, to know, regardless of whether people in this society approve of the choices I've made or not, regardless of whether my choices, my decisions, my physical body, the way I look, the way I speak, the life choices I've made, regardless of whether they are in alignment with what other people deem appropriate, correct, right, I know that I am good, that I am worthy, all of these things. That would be very healthy. It's rare, though. But that's the work that needs to be done, is the awareness that I am not someone else's projections. In the same way that if you were working with a child who had been abused, who came to you and said, there is something wrong with me, I'm bad, you'd say, no, sweetheart, of course you are not bad. You didn't deserve that. That's because this person who's abusing you is sick in their mind. There is a problem with them. That's why they are hurting you. And in the same way, when people don't approve, it's because in their mind, something is going on in which they cannot appreciate me. They cannot see me. And it may be an illness. It may be, really something wrong. It may be simply a particular prejudice or stereotype or judgment. But to recognize that it has nothing to do with you. It's about them. My favorite way of thinking about this is if I said to you, my God, that is the ugliest purple mohawk that I have ever seen. Like whoever gave you that purple mohawk, whoever your hairdresser is, really should lose their license, because that's just such an ugly purple mohawk. Now, you wouldn't suddenly feel bad about your hair because you know you don't have a purple mohawk. And you're not going to start having this complex of looking into every mirror or every window at, oh my God, my hair. Because you know, I've got long, straight, blonde hair. I don't have short purple hair sticking straight up from my head. And you don't need a mirror to tell you that. You don't need to go like this on your head as though somehow you got a purple mohawk. You know you don't have one. And so you would assume that either I'm blind, like I cannot see properly, that I've actually made a mistake, or that my eyes work, but my brain is crazy. But you wouldn't take it on yourself. You would understand very clearly the problem is with me, my eyes, my brain, my idea of a practical joke, whatever it may be. You'd understand I'm the problem, not your hair. And in the same way, we need to realize that in whatever way, we are not getting the approval we're searching for. It's not about us. It's about the person from whom we are seeking it, or the group of people, or the culture from whom we are seeking it. But to dive within and realize, I know I don't have a purple mohawk, whether it's a nice looking one or not a nice looking one. Either way, that is not my truth. and to not be swayed off your truth by someone who's either blind or crazy or has a really bad idea of a practical joke. And this is where our spiritual practices and our introspection and our contemplation are so powerful, because they help us to self-reference, to understand the self. We use our self to understand others. But then tragically, we use others to understand the self. We need to use ourself to understand ourselves. And that's where the practice comes in. Is just realizing what other people are seeing is their projections. Not that you're judging them, not that you're blaming them. We just are aware that what everybody sees is their own projection. But I know myself. I know my value. You know, one of the most powerful things that I've learned in my life is the importance of becoming your own best friend. And it's really hard. I remember when I first had this conversation with myself, like all of us, the instinct of my mind toward the self is very negative. It's very positive toward everyone else. But to the self, it's very negative, very judgmental. And I remember the first time I noticed that, and I was really watching it, and I thought, my God, look at this. You're so loving and caring, even in your mind, generous, forgiving, compassionate to others in your own mind. And look at the way you talk to yourself. Can't you be for yourself what you are for all those people? Look at all these people for whom you are such a good friend, to whom you bring so much love and support and compassion. Why do you leave yourself out? Why do you think that everyone else is worthy of your own love and compassion and support, and you're not? And I just started really looking at that and examining it and realizing the craziness of it. Because the moment you realize that, you think, oh my God, wow. When did I ever make the decision that everyone in the world is worthy of my love except myself? And what a crazy decision to have made. That everyone in the world is worthy of the benefit of the doubt. Worthy of compassion. Worthy of forgiveness. And I'm not? What crazy illusion did that come from? And the moment you start looking at it and realizing how crazy it is the moment that you start to be able to change it. And I started just a personal practice where every moment that I found myself saying something negative to myself in my own mind, I would pretend that I was saying it to someone else, and I would come in as the best friend and say, oh, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Come on, honey. Come here, sweetheart. It's all right. It's not like that at all. And just start to talk to myself in the second person. You know, using you like I was talking to someone else. And realized, oh, wow. I can actually, imagine this, become a friend to myself the way I am to others. That I can have love and compassion for the hurt parts of myself. the same way that I can have love and compassion for the hurt parts of others. And isn't that amazing? So it's been a really beautiful practice, and it's not difficult at all. It just requires awareness and intention. You'll feel silly about it in the beginning, because talking to yourself in the second person always feels a little bit silly in the beginning. When you do it positively, interestingly, negative, we're great at it. You are so stupid. Oh my God, who do you think you are? Like, we're good at it in that way. But when you start doing it in the positive way, it feels really forced in the beginning. Really kind of corny and sappy. But just keep doing it. And suddenly you'll find, oh my God, look at that. I actually have someone in me whose opinion I value significantly more than those who don't approve of me outside. You literally home grow an ally who's always been there, you've just never realized it. So start turning to that. Develop that friendship. Reach out. Hey, forgot you were in here. Can we be friends? Just talk to it like that. Again, it's in your head. Nobody's going to know you're doing it. And yeah, it seems sappy in your own mind, but that's all right. It'll start to become much more natural as you go along. And it feels really beautiful because most of us can be such great friends to others. We can be so caring and so loving and so compassionate and so wise for others. And we forget that we have that ability to do that for ourselves.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. I heard it said really beautifully. I don't know who said it, but I love it. That the volume of our voice has nothing actually to do with the distance between our bodies, and everything to do with the distance between our hearts. That when we're angry with someone, even if they're standing 3 inches in front of us, we shout at them. when we are just having a discussion, a conversation with someone. You sit at a table, you're a few feet apart, but you use kind of your normal voice. When you love someone, even they're across the room, you whisper. Hey, love you. Right, we whisper. Even if their bodies are a little far away, we whisper. And when we speak to God, we're silent. And it was such a beautiful way of describing that relationship between the volume and the distance of the heart. So why we shout when we're angry? Because our hearts have become very distant, very separate. And so we use volume to try to, it's an unconscious thing, it's an automatic thing, but we use volume to try to kind of cover distance. When the hearts are very close, I know, even if you're far away, you can hear me. Because our hearts are one. But when our hearts are far apart, even your body is here, I feel like I need to shout because there's this great chasm between us. And if I don't shout, you won't understand and it won't penetrate. And so we shout. We shout also when we lose control. No one who's in control, who's present, who's centered, who's conscious, shouts. It's a horrible waste of physical energy. My God, it takes a lot out of you to shout. I know sometimes in big functions and events, even sometimes in our arti, the mic isn't working very well. And so you end up having to really talk very, very loud because the microphone power is not so good. Now, in that case, you're not shouting because you're unconscious. You're shouting because you know if I don't, the people 200 rows back aren't going to hear me. But it takes so much energy. In a 5-minute speech, someplace where the sound system is not good, it drains your energy having to shout. So we do it in life only when we're not conscious of it, when we're angry. We've lost ourselves. And so I think on some unconscious level, there's this sense that if we just get loud enough, we can somehow gain control back of the situation. And yet, of course, if you've ever been on the receiving end of someone shouting, what you know is that when somebody shouts at you, the last thing you feel for them is respect. We shout because we want somebody to listen, to understand, to respect us. But as you're on the receiving end of it, usually all we can think is, oh my God, when is he going to shut up? Or when is she going to shut up? Or like, just stay quiet so that person gets calm again. You're certainly not thinking, oh wow, I really respect them so much because they're shouting. It's the opposite. We lose respect. We think that person has no control over themselves. In Hindi we say they've come out of their dhoti, like they're out of their clothes. As in literally they have become undressed in their fit of the moment. So it's not a very respectful way of describing somebody yelling and screaming. So if you ever find yourself metaphorically coming out of your clothes with your volume and your voice, just take a moment. Just take a moment and stop. Even if it's mid-sentence. Sometimes we think, oh my God, I can't stop now. Then they'll really lose respect for me. But actually the truth is, if you think about someone who's going on and on, screaming and yelling, and then suddenly in the middle of it they stop, and they say, you know what? I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go take a walk. You actually would have more respect for that person than for someone who just screams and yells until they've expended all of their energy, and then finally they slam a door and walk out. The one who actually catches themselves, regains control of themselves, regrounds themselves, anchors themselves, and makes a conscious decision in favor of consciousness by deciding to go take a walk or sit and meditate for a little while or just drink a glass of cool water. That's actually someone to emulate. That's someone to feel like, that's a very respectful thing to do. Like they were really angry, but look how they handled that. I would be much more inclined to actually respect that person. So if you are someone inclined to scream and yell when you're angry, just try to bring as much consciousness into your life as you can. Every minute, every moment. And you'll find that that permeates you even when you are in moments of anger. And you'll catch yourself screaming. Sometimes you'll catch it only after it happens. But as your power of awareness grows, you'll catch yourself in the middle of it. And just stop right there. The minute you're aware, just stop. And then slowly, slowly, as your power of awareness grows, you'll be able to catch yourself before it even starts. And that's the goal. That's the goal of bringing our awareness and mindfulness into our lives. So connect with that to which you are very close, like God, like a loved one, to whom you can speak silently or in a whisper. And just start talking to that person instead of the one you're angry at, until your volume comes down. And then regroup. Regain consciousness. Come back to yourself. It'll do wonders for your relationships and also, of course, for your own spiritual growth.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. A guru, literally, from the Sanskrit word, is the one who removes the darkness. That's actually what the word means, meaning the one who brings you light. Now, the darkness is ignorance. We don't believe in darkness of you. It's not you are a dark, bad, wrong person, and the guru is going to make you a light, pure, beautiful, worthy person. It's not that. It's you are a pure, divine being, but you don't know it because you identify as the physical body. And then, of course, you identify as what we call the vasanas of that body. It means you get distracted. You get pulled away from who you really are. You start to identify as the body itself, the desires, the fears, the history, the emotions, the vices. That then results in anger, guilt, shame, jealousy, resentment, all of these sorts of things. That's what we consider darkness, ignorance. As in, there is light, it is covered by a veil of ignorance. The guru is the one who removes that veil of ignorance, so that the light emerges. The light of you. And this is always a key point. Because along with that of having a guru, frequently the question arises, well, how do we know who is the right guru? And there's no equation for it, but there is one way to know if someone's not the right guru, which is the guru is not the one who shines the light on himself or herself. It's not that. It's not, hey, look at me, spotlight's here. It's showing you the light of you. So if in the guru's presence or from the guru's teachings, you feel able to access the truth of who you are, that's the guru. Now, having that person, if you don't live in India, no problem. First of all, there's no rule that a guru must be Indian. There's religious traditions from all over the world. There's prophets and sages and what we would call rishis or yogis, mystics from all the different religious traditions in the world, from all the different countries in the world. So it's not that it has to be only someone who's Indian or someone who's in India. But even if you do find that in someone who's here in India, well, that wisdom stays with you wherever you are. It's the benefit of when you've really been touched. It stays with you. You've been changed. That change stays with you. One of the upsides of technology is it actually can be used to stay connected on a very physical level that we didn't used to have. The wisdom always stayed. People would, get on a boat from England or Europe or other parts of the world, and they'd come to India for a few months. No one came for only days at that time, but they'd come for, maybe a few months, maybe a few years, and then they'd go back. And for many of them, it was only one trip to India in a lifetime. The boat itself took months to get here, or many weeks, depending on where they were coming from. It was a major undertaking. But then their entire lives would be impacted by that experience that they had. And they weren't able to go back and then just, watch the guru on YouTube or, join in live or download things. But they still were able to take it back. We now have this added benefit of taking it back inside of us, being able to come back and forth more frequently with the ease of transportation, but also even when you're not here, to be able to stay connected in very powerful ways. So wherever you find that remover of darkness, get connected, hook into it, and then carry it with you at all times, however you can. When I first came to India, on the first stint of being here, the first trip was just 3 months, and then I had to go back because Pujya Swamiji made me go back and finish at least the next semester of my PhD program. And one of the aspects when I had been here was we had gone to Vrindavan and Govardhan, and we had done this parikrama, this walking around Govardhan Hill. Now, at that time, I didn't know who Krishna was. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Hinduism. I didn't know anything about the religion. I hadn't studied any of it. But the power was so powerful that even not knowing it didn't matter. I was impacted. And impacted very deeply. And as we were doing this barefoot walking of a 21-kilometer walking around this sacred mountain. And it was this huge yatra. There were thousands of us. So you just imagine the crowds. As we were passing through a little marketplace, some man came out of his shop. I mean, everybody had come out of their shops to get the darshan of the saints, because there were many, many saints leading this pilgrimage. And as I was walking, he grabbed my hands and put something in my hand that I only was able to look at many, many kilometers later when the crowd kind of thinned out a little bit and I was no longer being pushed from every direction. And I opened my hands and it was this image of Bhagwan Krishna's eyes. It was just eyes. It was this black background and a nose, actually. So there was no outline of the head, but it was these huge eyes, a very simple nose and mouth, and that was it. But the eyes were so powerful. I can still see it. And I took that and I taped it into the back of my assignment book. In school, days before iPads and smartphones and, laptops on every desk and whatnot. And so I had a spiral-bound assignment book that I would write down every day's things in. And I taped this image into my assignment book. And I would open up my assignment book to write something down and have darshan. And the tears would just start to stream down my face. So even in the days long before YouTube, long before anything, there were ways to stay connected. When that connection is real and deep, it's with you all the time. Back into the awareness, back into the remembrance. Because once you've seen the light, you know it. And you may get distracted, you may forget, but you just need something, a picture, a mantra, a reminder, an audio, whatever it may be. I took back a cassette. Again, days before iPods and, whatnot. A cassette, and I played it in my car. And it was of the Ganga Arati. And I just would listen to it all the time. And the morning prayers. One side of each. And I just would listen to it all day long as I drove anywhere. So you'll find ways to keep remembering, and technology has made it so much easier. So don't worry about that.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. First of all, it's really important to realize that silence is not the absence of noise, any more than peace is the absence of violence, or health is the absence of illness. Yes, in order for there to be silence, you need an absence of noise. In order for there to be peace, there needs to not be conflict. In order to have health, you need to not have illness. But it's a lot bigger than that. It's a lot more than that in all of the circumstances. Silence, it's not an emptiness. If you think of it just as the absence of noise, then it would be simply an emptiness, an absence. There was a presence of noise. Now there's no longer a presence of noise. We have an absence. It is silence. It's not that. Silence is very full. It's actually, interestingly, a lot more full than noise because it enables us to experience a fullness that is much deeper, much richer, and much more full than that which takes place simply through the sound waves in the atmosphere. You know, we hear conversation, we hear sounds, we hear noise, we hear music, we hear whatever it may be. And it makes us feel like it's full. There's a lot of stuff going on. auditory nerves of my brain are being constantly stimulated. But when you stop stimulating them and you actually create a spaciousness of silence, then you actually start to really hear the sounds of the self, the sounds of the universe. And it's so much more powerful than the sounds that we hear in the world around us. So remember, it's very full. If we remember that the reason we are here, the whole purpose of our human existence, is to have what we call self-realization or God-realization, to know the self. How can we know it if we're constantly distracted? You can't know anything if you're constantly distracted. If you're sitting in a classroom, just even picture you're learning anything. Sitting in a class, a teacher's doing arithmetic on the board or teaching history. And every 2 seconds, we are distracted by a phone, by the person sitting next to us, by whatever it may be. You're not going to learn what's being taught. You're going to fail the exam. Very simple. It's why we tell all of our children, pay attention in class. Listen to what the teacher says. Why? Because if you're not listening, you're not going to get what's being taught. You're going to fail the exam. Same thing in life. There's not an exam. The universe is very patient. It'll just keep giving you birth after birth until you finally learn it. But it's the same idea that if you're not listening, you're not going to learn. You're not going to hear the truth if you're not listening. And if we are listening only externally, oh, what did you say? Oh, change the channel on my radio. You're not going to hear the sound inside. Silence also does something that's really interesting. If you watch your thoughts, what you'll notice is that a lot of the thoughts we have are actually preparing and rehearsing for what we're going to tell somebody else. So I've noticed, for example, if I'm taking a walk, let's say, and I'm walking alone, and I notice something, immediately my mind will start preparing the way I'm going to tell somebody what I saw. It's rehearsing the conversation I'm going to have when I get back from my walk, or pull my phone out of my bag to call somebody and tell somebody something. But if you're in silence and your mind knows, even when I get back from my walk, I'm not going to be telling anybody this thing I saw because I'm in silence, the mind stops doing its preparation rehearsal thing. And you realize in times like that how much of the mind's energy is spent planning conversations that we're going to have. What we're going to say, what somebody else is going to say, what's the best way to say it, what's kind of a funny way to say it. We're constantly, somebody sends us a message, we're constantly planning what we're going to say in response. But if you're in silence and your mind knows you're not going to be saying anything, whether it's for hours or days, the mind stops planning because there's a sort of critical window, you could say, of time. You're not going to say to somebody, oh, 4 days ago, remember you said this? Well, here's a very funny line in response. It's not funny 4 days later. It's only funny in the moment. You're not going to say to somebody, oh, 4 days ago I took a walk and I saw this thing. They'd be like, right, so? It's only interesting in the spur of the moment. So almost 100%, not exactly, but almost 100% of the things that you're planning to say are never going to get said if you're in silence at that time, which means the mind stops preparing itself. So not only is the mind quiet because you're not actually having conversation and listening to other people, but you're not even having the internal conversation. And so it really becomes very quiet. Another really powerful aspect of silence is it reminds us what a huge percentage, way over 50%, I would say close to 100%, but again, not fully 100%, certainly 90%, of that which we speak is utterly useless. It's just filling up space. And if you're in silence, the mind still, at least for the first few days, depending on how long you observe, but at least for the first few days, the mind will keep having an instinct of something to say because it forgets you're in silence. And you have to keep reminding it, oh, wait, I'm in silence. After a few days, it starts to remember and it stops even coming up with these thoughts. But as thoughts arise and the mind says, oh, I'm in silence, you realize, thank God, that was kind of a stupid thing I was planning to say anyway. And you just start to see the rising of what you ordinarily would speak without thinking. And it makes you realize, my God, how much energy am I wasting in literally just verbalizing the nonsense commentary in my own mind. I mean, it's bad enough that it's reverberating in my own mind. Now I need to fill the sound waves of the universe with it. Like, it's bad enough I'm sick inside. We tell everybody, when you're sick, stay home. Don't go to work. Don't go to school. Don't go to the grocery store. Don't get other people sick. Don't sneeze and cough on others. But we all have this sickness of the mind where it's just engaged in constant, unnecessary nonsense. And then what do? We verbalize it. We bring that inner sickness to fill up the space in the world around us, polluting other people's minds as well. I've actually started to see that kind of talk as what you could call soft violence. You're not taking a knife or a gun and killing someone. But on a very deep level, it's actually still violence because you are filling the sound waves around them. You're filling the energy around them with that which is not only not helpful, but is actually harmful. So silence reminds us, oh, I don't actually have to say everything I think. I'm not just stimulus response salivating Pavlov's dogs. I actually have the ability to decide what to speak. And so not only is silence powerful, but your speech becomes much more powerful if you are an observer of silence. Because you don't just say something because you thought it. And you don't just speak to fill up space, which means you save a lot of energy. Speaking, it actually takes a lot of energetic Shakti of the body. Dehydrates you. As you speak, you're literally sending little water particles out in the world. When you do a lot of speaking, you get thirsty. You sing, you speak, you get thirsty because you're literally sending out water. So it saves energy, physical energy, just energetic energy of the body. So it's a great practice. I really, really strongly recommend it. And if you can't string days together based on your logistic situation, don't worry. Just have a few hours a day that you're in silence. Not while you're sleeping. Some hours when you are awake. Start even with just 1 hour a day. And then expand it and expand it. A lot of us think, oh my God, I couldn't possibly do it. As though what we say is so important. And the minute you start, you realize, oh, I guess what I say isn't that important. I guess I'm actually able to get by in silence a lot more easily than I thought I was. And then you start to hear the sound of the self. So it's a very, very powerful practice. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.